All right, so whenever you're ready, I can start.
Whenever you're ready.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Carliss Chatman, and I'm your host of Getting Common. In my day job, I'm an associate professor at Washington and Lee's Law School. The topic of today's episode is the law of cryptocurrency and NFTs with my guest, who is an expert in the area, Carla Reyes. I will start by having her introduce herself. Carla?
Hi, so I'm Carla Reyes. I'm an assistant professor at SMU Dedman School of Law in Dallas. I teach in the areas of business and commercial law and in blockchain law and related issues related to artificial intelligence in the law. I research pretty firmly, squarely in the area of cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. It's my favorite thing. I practiced as a blockchain lawyer at Perkins Coie for roughly 7 years. So before it was a thing that people thought was a thing, I was a blockchain lawyer.
And I will say you are also involved in developing legislation, and you have written some amazing code for some self-executing documents that I hope we can talk about later in the podcast. So if you ever need a blockchain expert, I actually had a friend yesterday who was like, hey, do you know anybody who does this? Or I heard this lawyer talking about blockchain. And I said, well, that was Carla. And I was like, that could only actually be Carla. Like, it was Carla. Like, that's whose paper you read. That's whose work you read. So we have the quintessential blockchain, crypto, NFTs, all things like tech expert here today.
Oh, thanks.
All right. So let's start with something really, really basic. What is cryptocurrency?
You say that it's basic, but it's actually not that basic, but we'll try. Okay, so cryptocurrency is a broad term that is now used as a catch-all for many different types of digital assets. And I should say there are probably 3 terms thrown around there now that I would consider catch-all. So you might hear crypto assets, you might hear cryptocurrency, and you might hear digital assets. I think of digital assets as the most broad. So that it could include things like your photographs, right? It could include things that are subject to the Uniform Fiduciary Duty and Digital Assets Act. But it could also include crypto assets. Then I think crypto assets is the term used most broadly to encompass cryptocurrency, tokens, etc. Then cryptocurrency itself, when people use that term, I think they usually, not always, but usually mean to refer to what I think of intrinsic cryptocurrency or native cryptocurrency. It's the cryptocurrency that makes a certain blockchain work. So blockchain itself is a protocol technology that runs on top of the internet, first of all, right? So it doesn't exist in a vacuum, but it sits on top of the internet. And then it is a protocol for allowing people who don't necessarily know each other and maybe don't agree, trust each other, to agree with each other about the existence and evolution of shared facts between them. So you'll hear it called a ledger a lot. It's not really a ledger, depending on the protocol, but we use the metaphor sometimes to explain that basically it's tracking transactions between a bunch of people who don't know each other in a trusted way, without an intermediary. So it's like your bank account transaction ledger without the bank. The software itself is doing it. And the cryptocurrency is usually the transaction that you are tracking is transfers of those cryptocurrency. But a cryptocurrency usually also has some role to play in the security of the protocol. So the biggest examples people have heard of are Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the cryptocurrency that is intrinsic to the Bitcoin blockchain. And it's been customary now to sort of separate the two and say, like, I do blockchain, but I don't do Bitcoin. That's not technically a thing that you can do, because the Bitcoin blockchain doesn't work without Bitcoin. And similarly, you can't transfer Bitcoin without the Bitcoin blockchain. Another example would be Ether for the Ethereum protocol. Ether is the cryptocurrency that comes out of the operation of the protocol, but also it's important to the secure functioning of the protocol. It has an actual computer science function. It's not just like a monetary token, right? And then within cryptocurrency, I think sometimes people use it to mean when they really mean tokens. So there's a lot of talk about ICOs or initial coin offerings, but those are tokens in my sort of terminology, taxonomy. The token is a second layer cryptocurrency. So if you imagine the blockchain sits here, that's layer one, and it has its own cryptocurrency that makes it work. Then on top of that sits a smart contract that creates a token. And initial coin offerings are pretty much usually at that second layer of the tech stack. So that was a long-winded answer to your question, but
so I'm gonna follow up. So if I say blockchain, does that only mean Bitcoin?
No. I mean, okay, so technically if you say blockchain, that's like not actually a thing. So the appropriate terminology would be to specify a blockchain, right? Like the Bitcoin blockchain, or to say blockchain technology as like a class of technology. But when people say, I'm going to put it on quote, the blockchain, like that's not a thing exactly. Right. So yes and no.
And so when we talk about Ethereum, isn't that the other one? When we talk about that, so that's on a different blockchain from Bitcoin.
Yeah, it runs on what I would refer to as the Ethereum protocol. Technically, and they operate very differently. The Bitcoin blockchain operates on a transaction basis, not on what you might think of as an account model. So like your bank account is an account where you keep track of a ledger and you have debits and credits, right? The Bitcoin blockchain does not operate on an account model. Basic building blocks of the Bitcoin blockchain is a transaction. And so what is literally being tracked, which is why calling it a ledger it's not quite the right metaphor, but what's literally being tracked is, so Carla has 10 Bitcoin. And in the Bitcoin blockchain, if I have 10, and they're all from what a Bitcoin is actually an unspent transaction output. So what I have is a private key that will unlock these outputs if I want to move them, which is associated with the public key, somewhere you could send me more if you wanted. So I have a private key that will unlock this script and I could send them on to you. So say I have 10 unspent transaction outputs altogether, and I wanted to send you 5. The way that the Bitcoin blockchain works is I'd have to send you 5, but I'd also have to send 5 back to myself. I have to spend them all because now they're spent transaction outputs. They can't stay there as unspent transaction outputs. I have to create new ones. And I send you 5 and I send 5 back to myself. And the only way, like a good way to I think about it is like when you go, back to when things could actually cost $1 and I'm like, I was a kid, things could actually cost $1 and or maybe even 50 cents. And I had $1, I had a $1 bill and the thing cost 50 cents. So I'd go up and get my piece of candy for 50 cents. I give the whole $1 to the clerk. I wouldn't like split it in half and hand them half $1 bill. And then they'd keep 50 cents and I'd get 50 cents back, right? It's the same thing in Bitcoin. In Ethereum, on the other hand, Ethereum is an account-based model, and it is much more akin to like looking at a ledger of debits and credits. And it just operates, it's just a different model, in part because Ethereum operates on a virtual machine. So the theory of Ethereum is a big network that creates this giant virtual computer that processes transactions like a computer would. And the idea is you can build more things, more computer programs in this virtual machine, whereas the Bitcoin blockchain is much more difficult to build things on top of it. Okay. So you always hear about like ICOs, NFTs. It's always happening on Ethereum or other protocols like Ethereum, and less likely to be happening on Bitcoin.
So I've got a Cash App account. It says I can put Bitcoin in my Cash App account and convert it to dollars immediately and, pay for things using Bitcoin. What is happening when I put Bitcoin in my Cash App account?
Yeah. So when you Cash App would be what we might call and I say this without knowing the specific details of the software that Cash App uses, but generally an app like Cash App is what we might call a custodial wallet. So when I put my Bitcoin in my Cash App wallet, I am transacting with them. I am sending my Bitcoin to them. And now it's their unspent transaction output. And I'm asked, I've given it to them. And if they wanted to run off with it, they could, because I couldn't force them to give it back to me, except law, right? But as a technical matter, they could just have it now. There's a saying in the cryptocurrency industry, not your keys, not your coin. And what you've done by putting your Bitcoin in the Cash App wallet is give them the keys to that Bitcoin. So technically not yours anymore. But so that's what's happening there. I'm turned often in a custodial wallet arrangement when I send my crypto to Cash App or to Coinbase, maybe. I am giving them my crypto for them to custody for me. It would be the idea. There are other wallets, self-hosted wallets, which is kind of a silly way to think about it, but self-hosted wallets where it's just software where I control it all. Maybe somebody's providing that software to me. Coinbase also has a self-hosted wallet version where I'm still, it's still my keys, still my coin, but I'm just using their software to do it. But generally speaking, they're custodying the crypto for me, which is the less safe way to do it. So then about the transfer to cash part is them taking that away from my, so like just assume I send it to them, they put it in their own wallet. Then they keep like a separate Excel ledger that says, I owe Carla 2 Bitcoin, right? I wish, but I owe Carla 2 Bitcoin. And then I'm like, okay, I want to, cash out one of those Bitcoin for the, what is it, like $25,000 now? I haven't checked at the moment, but I want to cash one of those out for $25,000. Like, okay. And they send $25,000 to my bank. And then they just debit that away in the Excel sheet. Now she only has 1 Bitcoin with us. And then they just keep that other Bitcoin like it's theirs, because it is.
So it's like, it's just like when you put money into PayPal or Cash App to like pay your friend for a hotel room or to split dinner, you're transferring your money in. You're right. Now that you said that, I was like, they technically could just not send the money to my friend, right? But they do, right?
And
so
plus law, right? There's
yeah,
laws that mean they should.
right. Like law says they have to send it to you if I'm trying to pay Carla for dinner. Same thing with Bitcoin. But let's say Bitcoin was worth $30,000 when you put it in your wallet with Cash App, and now it's worth 25. Do they have to give you 30 or do they give you 25?
They give you what it's worth at the time. Yeah.
That you spend it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I asked that question because, it follows into my next question. One thing I've seen on the internet, and I've talked to Christina and Sergio about what they've noticed on Reddit. I've seen it on the internet too. People don't understand the difference between like actually selling your Bitcoin and getting out 50,000 or 25,000 or whatever it's worth that day, trading in Bitcoin futures and investing, or just letting it sit on the sitting on the blockchain, and it goes up and down and fluctuates. So they will say, I spent $30,000 and I bought 1 Bitcoin. It is now worth $25,000. Who took my $5,000 is what gets said on the internet, which crazy to people like us, but lay people really don't understand what's happening. Or they will go on Robinhood and invest in Dogecoin and invest in other crypto stocks on Dogecoin, and will say, oh, I bought $100 worth of Dogecoin. Where's my $100?
Yeah.
That's clearly not what's happening. So
no, that's not how it works.
No, it's not like when you exchange dollars for euros, right? It is not.
Right.
It's something different. So let's break down, an explanation of this. So when people say they're investing in crypto on the internet, right? You go on Robinhood and you're investing in crypto. Is that the same as cash? And how is that different from having crypto?
Okay. So it depends on, we're going to start with your definition of it, and going on the internet and investing in crypto as being going on to Robinhood and investing in crypto. In that case, all I've done is give Robinhood the money and trust that they bought crypto for me. And then hopefully they did, right? And then what they owe me in the end is if I sell it, whatever price I sell it for, whether I sell it back to them, and they give me the price that it is, 14,000, 60,000, whatever, right? Then that's what I'm doing. I'm selling it to them rather than like cashing it out. But they don't have to buy it from me. They're under no obligation to cash me out, right? Or if I trade it with someone, then I'll get the price that person is willing to pay for it at the time. But all the while, if we're doing it all on Robinhood, we are trusting that Robinhood A actually has the coin that I asked them to buy for me, and then B, that they haven't like spent it already, right? And that recently there was this big Celsius sort of self-destruction. And that was part of it. Celsius had gone out and used crypto that they had purchased or that had been given by users to do other things. And it got tied up and they couldn't get it back when people wanted to cash out. And it caused a big problem, a big, huge problem like insolvency. So that's what you're doing when you're investing in crypto on Robinhood. You're just asking them to buy crypto for you and hold it. Just like you're asking them to buy, I don't know, a share of Apple and hold it for you. And then that share will vary in price along with the market. So will the Bitcoin that they're holding for you. But if I want to invest in crypto on the internet, I can do that directly through the protocol without any intermediary whatsoever. But still, my Bitcoin will go up and down according to the market in value, just like it would if it was in Robinhood. The difference is whether I trust Robinhood to stay solvent and have my Bitcoin in the end versus whether I trust myself not to lose my private keys, which happens a lot too.
Right.
And then if you lose your private keys, you don't have it at all.
So how about when people are investing on like Coinbase and they're like, I'm in 20 different crypto stocks, is what they say, right? And so we can debate whether it's actually, we should talk about whether it's stock or not when they're investing in crypto stock on Coinbase. How is that different than when they're doing it on Robinhood? Or is it the same thing? Is it the same thing?
So to be honest, I don't own any crypto on Robinhood and I haven't tried to trade there. So I can't compare from personal experience. But for Coinbase, I could just buy and hold the same way we talked about in the way of Robinhood. And in that case, I'm still trusting Coinbase that they've bought it and they're holding it for me, right? Or I could send them crypto I already have and they could hold it for me. Then Coinbase has a variety of service offerings. And one of them is you would put it in a trading wallet. And that trading wallet would be designed for you to sort of arbitrage the price of crypto and what you know about the market the same way if you were a stock trader trying to make money off of your trades, right? Trying to guess how the market is going. And you can do that in a variety of ways. You can do I don't think on Coinbase, and there are other exchanges where you can borrow and trade on margin and trade on leverage, but it operates in that way much like if you were a day trader generally. I don't know if that's answering
and I would
question.
like, I would just, I keep emphasizing this, but I will sometimes get those Instagram or Facebook or Twitter like DM messages where it's like, I'm a billionaire because I traded crypto on the internet and I'm investing in futures and join me in being a millionaire too. Why aren't you in crypto? And I think it's really, really important to emphasize that one, you really shouldn't take advice from a stranger who's DMing you on social media. Like, don't do that. Be very careful about taking advice from people who are posting videos on social media and claiming they're millionaires and billionaires because they might just be taking your cash. But there are not regulated markets to do everything like you can do with stock,
right,
with crypto. So just be very, very careful where you're investing and what you are doing.
Yeah, agreed. And in particular, if someone's DMing you like, I can help you become a billionaire, just send me your coins and I'll manage it for you. Like, not your keys, not your coin, right? So if you send it to them, they have no obligation to give it back to you.
Right. And maybe they're only a billionaire because people keep sending them their coins.
Yeah.
Maybe. All right. Now quickly, or as quickly as we can, what are NFTs, right? Like we see, all these celebrities paid $1 million for this NFT and, and it's like just a digital image or whatever. So what is happening with that? What's an NFT?
Okay, so an NFT stands for non-fungible token, and we call them non-fungible tokens because unlike cryptocurrency and most tokens, they are not fungible. So the idea is Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are fungible, and so far, like every Bitcoin is interchangeable with another. It all is valued the same price at that time, right? And it doesn't really matter which one you're using exactly. But like it's the same, like $1 bill is worth $1 bill is worth $1 bill, that kind of thing. You can replace it with $1. But an NFT is a unique digital object, non-fungible. It cannot be be like swapped out with something else. They're unique, and they are unique because they're built that way. Technically, they have embedded identifiers to distinguish them from any other. So each NFT itself is a token, namely a smart contract, form of a smart contract that is unique and identifiable that way. Now, the token, the NFT token can point to other things, right? You can, and this is true of regular cryptocurrency, you can embed pointers into Bitcoin and have it point off to other things, right? But if you make an NFT point to something like a digital image of art, right? You can essentially connect the two things via a hash so that you know this NFT, this unique digital item, is connected to this digital piece of art, right? When I buy an NFT, though, and it depends, like I say all of this with the regular disclaimers, like it's going to depend what you're buying. It's going to depend entirely on the platform from which you purchase it and what their terms of services are. Okay. So that being said, many of the platforms for NFTs, their terms of service basically say, when you buy the NFT, you're buying the token. That's great. And you are buying a license to display, use, sometimes used for commercial purpose, sometimes not, the digital art, for example, or whatever it is that's connected to the NFT. So the big example is Bored Apes, right? Mm-hmm. So if I purchase a Bored Ape, which I am not cool enough to own, unfortunately, I really won't. I think they're cool, but if I purchase a Bored Ape, then I am purchasing the NFT that's giving me a license to display the image of the Bored Ape. And I don't know that this is true for Bored Apes, so this is a clarification there, but sometimes licenses like that are non-transferable, non-exclusive, not worldwide licenses to display and enjoy the image, right? So then, and those platforms, when you sell your NFT to someone, yes, you've sold the token, good for you. But mm-hmm. The licenses in the background sometimes, and not for all platforms, but for sometimes operate just like an in-game digital item in like World of Warcraft Gold, right? Where what's happening in the background is you have this license with the platform, and then when you sell your NFT, they extinguish your license and they create a new license with the new owner of the NFT. But still, all anyone has is technically a non-exclusive, non-transferable license to enjoy the image, right? You're not actually owning the image necessarily. Sometimes, like I said, it all depends on the contract. But what it is you're buying is totally contractually based. It depends on what the contract says.
Well, and I'd like to clarify that, the reason it matters whether you truly own it or whether you just have a license to display it is kind of like the difference between owning your house and renting an apartment.
Yeah, exactly.
And
a non-exclusive, non-transferable right to rent your apartment.
Yeah. Right. Like you can't sell your apartment. You can live in you have the right to occupy your apartment.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can't even sublease.
Right.
And you definitely cannot sell your apartment to somebody else. Exactly. So I think that the reason I point that out too is that should impact the value. Right?
You
would think, but people aren't reading their contracts.
No.
Right. So
that's exactly
how, buying a house should be more than renting an apartment. So an NFT that gives you full rights should be more expensive than an NFT that you're just renting, but nobody's reading their contracts except for Carla and people like me. So
Berkeley did a study, like in people's defense. I think Berkeley did a study, or somebody did a study that said, like, if you actually read all the terms of service to which you are subject, like that you're signing up newly each year, it would take you a month or so of your life every year to like just read the contracts that you agree to. So, I mean, in people's defense, there is that, but still, some of these things are quite expensive, and if I was buying something that expensive, I would read the terms of the deal before I did so. Yes. But to be clear, it's not true for all of them, right? There are some that are genuinely like NFTs that represent shares in a company, for example. And like the NFT is the thing, right? So where you should be careful is when the NFT points to something else that's not on chain. And that pointer, like knowing what your property rights and that other thing are, that's where you have to pay attention.
So what is making these things so valuable? And like, we talked about sometimes you're renting, sometimes you're owning, sometimes you get the right to display something, but you don't hold anything in your hand. most, right?
No.
So what is it that you're getting, and why is this so valuable? What's causing this trend?
Well, so it's not just the one objection, like you're not holding anything in your hand. It's not uncommon for intangible things to be quite valuable, right? Intellectual property generally, right, for a company can be quite so patents can be worth quite a lot, right? For example, and that a patent in itself is an intangible piece of property. So it's not uncommon for intangible things to be worth a lot. But the I mean, I'm not always sure what makes one NFT do much better than another, but certainly in the world of digital collectibles, it is a little bit about rarity, right? And so Bored Apes, there's only so many of them. And so they're replicating the same sort of scarcity that worked well with Bitcoin in the NFT sort of digital collectible space. It's the same thing that like made the Beanie Baby craze go wild or whatever back in the day. There's limited editions and you can mutate them, or like with the crypto kitties, you could breed new ones. It was like a is it Tamagotchi? Did you ever have the
Yeah.
little it's like
I'm
that,
too
but
old for that, but I remember.
well, I wasn't too old for that, but I think I had a Tamagotchi. But anyway, or maybe that makes me older. I don't know, but whatever.
No,
I had one.
you're like 5 years younger than me. So this is why I missed
Anyway,
it. Yeah.
okay, so I had one, and it's just like that. Like CryptoKitties is like that, except through NFTs. But in that case, like the breeding them, then you get an even new rare one, and like that's worth more. And I'm not really sure. A lot of it has to do with the rarity of the collectible, and then on top of that, it's just like art. So whatever intangible thing makes you love this art and that artist more than another is the same kind of thing that goes into NFTs, I think. But the one that I really don't understand yet, the economic model behind it, is the NFTs that represent title to virtual virtual land.
Yeah.
I'm this one I can't quite figure out like why. That's the only one I'm
Yeah, I don't get it.
know. Yeah.
I don't get it. But I don't live my life online. I mean, ish, but not in the way that these people live their lives online. So one of the more interesting thing to me about all of this is the regulations or lack thereof. So let's start with NFTs. Are there agencies out there, government agencies, regulating NFTs yet?
Yeah. So all cryptocurrency is like all current cryptocurrency is regulated to the extent you're conducting regulable activity, right? So it's not, agencies don't regulate the thing, right? It's not whether it's a cryptocurrency or a token or an NFT. It's not that unique technical implement that is regulated. It's what you're doing with it that is regulated. So if I found a way to launder money using NFTs, yeah, FinCEN's going to care about that. If I'm a money transmitter who happens to transmit money through NFTs, or like say an NFT was used, the thing it pointed to was a form of gold, like physical gold or something, and so technically it's a stable coin, and I'm money transmitting. Maybe FinCEN's going to care about that, and they'll regulate the money transmission piece of it. But it's the activity of transmitting money that's regulated. Similarly, if NFTs are being sold as an investment contract, the SEC is going to care about that. And they've signaled that they're going to look at NFTs in the short term, right? Similarly, if there does become a market for futures, and then the regulatory agencies are going to care about that as well, right? So certainly anything that that is the activity that is regulated, it's not going to matter whether it's in cryptocurrency, tokens, or NFTs, frankly. The piece that is, I think, just sort of becoming mature for NFTs is the private law of NFTs, in part because I think that's the part that is sort of becoming mature for the whole ecosystem. So the Uniform Law Commission just this summer, and I should say the American Law Institute and the Uniform Law Commission just this summer finished their process for amending the UCC. And those amendments, although they deal with many topics related to emerging technology, one of the things that they do is create an Article 12 to build the private law related to digital, they call controllable electronic records, but really digital assets in any of their forms that have commercial value, like NFTs. cryptocurrency and tokens. So I do think, and I think the custody piece is still less developed. And UNIDRA, the International Institute for Unification of Private Law, is working on principles related to both the same thing, the sort of transfer and both the, I should just say, the transfer and the custody piece of private law piece of cryptocurrency and NFTs and tethered assets and whatever else you might come up with. But yeah, certainly it just depends.
Right. So what's happening with so what Carla described with FinCEN and SEC, and I guess also DOJ if you were a victim of fraud, that's federal law, that's, across state lines, et cetera. But the private law component that she's talking about would have to be, and that's why we have uniform laws for that in the law, that has to be adopted state by state because the federal government can't control your day-to-day contracts. And so, if someone has breached a contract but not committed fraud enough to be a crime and trigger the DOJ or trigger like them going to jail, we don't have law that's developed yet for, you can apply the current basic contract principles to it, but
Right.
things that are specific to this type of cryptocurrency hasn't been developed yet. And that's what Article 12 of the UCC would do. It would be for what happens if Carla and I are contracting and, she does something wrong, that's going to be governed by the UCC. But if, she's actually making an investment contract and turning it into a security, that's the SEC. And that is also your individual state, either, Secretary of State or whatever with your blue sky laws.
Yep.
So it's different layers of regulation in the United States. And then she also mentioned the international component because we don't have international law specifically for this stuff yet. And I think the reason that I bring up who's regulating it, and I've learned this from you, so many people who are investing in cryptocurrency think that this means that they can be anarchists and escape the law.
No. Yeah, no. And indeed, if you're committing a crime using cryptocurrency, like that's not really very smart. So you asked earlier if cryptocurrency is the same as cash. It is in the sense that, like, if you have cash in your wallet and someone steals your wallet, that sucks, right? Like, good luck getting that back. You can try, but good luck maybe get the wallet back, maybe get the cards inside it back, but the cash is probably gone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, if someone steals your private key, then, or if you lose your private key, right, then your crypto is probably gone. The difference is it's much, much easier actually to trace the crypto than it is to trace the cash. So back to, like, if you're using cryptocurrency to be a criminal, that's probably not the smartest thing you've ever done. That's why, because there are chain analytics, even though everything is in a series of encrypted transactions, you can use chain analysis to put some pieces together and track things down. Indeed, I think it's like the coolest thing that's happened all summer. There was a big hack of the LCX exchange, and tons of money was stolen, right? They were able to use chain analysis to track down the addresses to which some of the stolen funds were taken. And some went to an address in Coinbase, which is like really not smart of the criminal, because Coinbase is a fully regulated entity. And so anyone with an account there is fully verified, like they can figure out who you are, and then that's that, right? Some went into USDC, which is a stable coin, but it's operated on a permission system. So there is an issuer and there's someone running the network. Unlike Bitcoin, there is someone sort of behind the network that can block transactions, basically blacklist transactions. And because they could figure out where which the private addresses were, they couldn't figure out the identity in some cases, not the Coinbase part, but the rest of it, they couldn't figure out the identity of the person. So they sued John Doe, right? And they sought a TRO, and they got a freezing order saying, the judge said, you can't spend this cryptocurrency in these addresses, right? And then, I love this part, Helen and Knight served John Doe at their wallet address using an NFT. It's the coolest thing ever. It's called a service. They called it a service NFT, and they airdrops the NFT into the wallet, which just means like you open your wallet one day and there's cryptocurrency. It was dropped in there. And this one was called HK service token. And if it had a link, the court required Holland and Knight to include a link in the token. If you clicked on the link, it would take you to the page where they were required to list both like the motion that got the order itself, and all the supporting documents. And then that also proved like if the person opened it, right?
That it was them.
Yeah, but the court said that would count as service. And
that's more secure service of process than regular service of process, right? Like, with service of process, if someone spells my last name Chapman instead of Chatman, but they show up at my house and it's my social security number, court's like close enough. But if you airdropped it into my Apple wallet, it's me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so coolest thing that happened this summer. But to me anyway, I just think it's really innovative and like good for Holland and Knight for thinking about it. But
could they get a default judgment that way and like just take all the money?
I mean, if they don't show up and defend themselves, yeah, I'm gonna follow the case to see what happens. But also because they were able to because the thieves had transferred the stolen funds into USDC, which was a permission system, they were able to get an order for Circle and the Circle entity that I forget the name that runs the protocol, and they were able to blacklist those wallets. So basically those funds are frozen in place until the court decides what to do with them. But so they were basically able to freeze stolen funds. So they found so if you're a criminal, it's bad news. They can figure out where it goes, and then they can maybe they, depending on what you did with it, maybe they figure out who you are. And there's police activity happening at Coinbase Ireland, which is where that account is, right? And so that's happening. But so maybe they can figure out who you are if you're not smart enough to put it in a verified account. But separately, even if you keep it on like pseudonymous accounts, right, we can still figure out ways to freeze the stuff and come after you, which I love. So it's just not the smartest. And like the federal government's been seizing crypto from criminals for a long time, and then they auctioned it off later. The FBI, the Secret Service agents have all, I mean, this is not new. It's been happening since, I don't know, a long time since I was in practice. But yeah, it's just not smart to do this.
So what I like to tell my students is, don't think you're going to invest in crypto and not pay taxes.
Yes. Yeah.
And do not become a drug trafficker and buy and sell your heroin or whatever using crypto, because cash, there's no record of cash. Right. So it's still, if you want to be a drug dealer, cash is still the best thing. And then go like Ozark and figure out how to launder your money later, but like not on the blockchain.
Yeah. Because the Bitcoin blockchain tracks transactions. Like that's what it does. And it tracks transactions for like all of time. So that's just not the smartest way to do it. But
and I think it's generational. They're like, oh, it's on my phone, so I'm not using a bank, and it's outside of the system. And it's like, no, it's actually more in the system.
Yeah, exactly. But that's also, I mean, this is probably off topic at this point, but that's also part of why people worry about things like central bank digital currencies, because it is more than the system, right? So it has real privacy risks. But then it's also why this thing, I don't know if you follow, I also often tell my students that like, if I raise a current events reference, you're like, what is she talking about? It's because I live in a kind of different current events world than everyone else. But the big one for us right now is the Tornado Cash, which is a smart contract, a piece of software that's a mixer. So it's designed to help enhance the privacy of your transactions. OFAC listed it as on the specially designated persons list. And so now if you send any of your cryptocurrency transactions through Tornado Cash, then you are through this mixing service, and you are committing a serious crime, because it's strict liability, because you're committing a transaction with a sanctioned person. Essentially, it's a software, but it's the same as if you're committing a transaction with a sanctioned person. The problem is a lot of decentralized protocols just use this software like as part of how they work, and now they have to figure out if they can backtrack that, if they want to backtrack that, what the issue is if they don't, right? And then like, because it's just incorporated, a lot of people are unwittingly transacting with it in the days since. And so if they figure it out, then the question is like, what do you do with the cryptocurrency that is now tainted, essentially, and you're really no longer allowed to use it? Like what do you do? Anyway, it's very, and it's like the big topic right now.
Well, I mean, anytime you talk about personhood, I'm excited. And it's
Right.
interesting that, declaring it a person and making it a strict liability crime totally changes. Like you can accidentally do this, right?
Exactly.
That's the point. You can
Yeah.
accidentally do it.
Yeah.
Now, we've kind of talked about a lot of, very crazy things and all the different things that are happening with crypto and given an explainer, but I would love to talk about what the future holds and some of the ways that you have been using blockchain technology in conjunction with states to make things in our life easier, like recording title and those sorts of things. So tell us about the code you wrote that is a self-executing smart contract, and how that will make things better if we can switch other things to that format.
Yeah, thanks. So it's been a long project because I'm not a super skilled coder. So I've been learning over time. But I built basically the Article 9 filing system out of smart contracts. And so for those of you who are like, what's the Article 9 and a filing system? Article 9 is the article of the UCC that governs secured transactions. And secured transaction is a loan that you secure with collateral. And when a creditor makes a secured loan, they, in order to, so there's two things. One, it's enforceable against the debtor, the person that's borrowing the money, but in order to sort of like secure their place in line to that specific asset that's listed in the contract, they file a form, usually, sometimes in paper, but more increasingly now online, with the Secretary of State's office. Usually in Florida, there's a private organization that does the filing system, but everywhere else is the Secretary of State's office. And that filing system is it's designed to give notice to people who come later that this asset is already part of a secured transaction, right? So that everybody else knows they're going to be second, third, fourth in line. The difficulty is that for reasons of the way the filing system works, when you search in it, you don't always know where your place in line is. You don't always get the information you need to make that determination. And so I built it out of smart contracts on the idea that I could make searching easier. I could make searching more accurate so that you get actual notice and not just constructive notice. Like the law just assumes you got the notice if the filing was made. And it works. So I built it out of Lexon, which is actually code that's English. So I wrote English and the computer can read my English. It's like a stilted like it's a computer program version of English, right? It's not like the full English language, but it's English nonetheless. And the computer reads that and executes smart contracts. And currently, I think Lexon is compatible with Solidity, so it'll run on the Ethereum protocol, and with Sophia, so it will run on the Eternity blockchain. But and I know other sort of compatible interoperability, maybe is the word, is in the works as well. But the idea there is one that I have like more broadly, or a bigger idea about being able to execute law in real time the way it was meant to work, right? So we have a lot of laws that are in the books that don't operate in the world the way they were meant to operate when they were written. And if you can execute the law as it is written, then sometimes complexities could fall away, sometimes ambiguities could be resolved. And in the case of Article 9 in particular, I think if people would adopt this thing, like I could cut out, I don't know, 3 weeks worth of class probably, because there are a whole bunch of rules in Article 9 we created to fix the deficiencies in the existing system. So if those deficiencies didn't exist, we don't need those rules, right? And I think that could be true in a bunch of other areas of the law. I am working now on basically doing the same thing for LLC operating agreements, in part because several states have adopted clarifications maybe of their LLC statutes saying that you could have part of your governance in code. And so if the operating agreement is the thing that governs the management of the entity, maybe I can make the governance sort of happen exactly the way the agreement is written. But not the thing you find is not everything in the contract is executable, right? It's not everything needs to be executed by code. And so the trick is figuring out how to write the whole contract the way we expect it to look in order to carve off risk for the parties, but still drive efficiencies using code. Otherwise, just go back to the regular words and it's fine, right? But I do think there's this aspect of like, if there are other areas of the law where we can implement the law itself through the technology, then we can increase efficiencies and clarity and sort of help the markets generally.
So when I explain Article 9 to my students, I say, when you buy a car, right, it's a titled vehicle. And if you buy a car and you take out a loan, that's called a purchase money security interest, right? So
as long as you use the money to buy the car, yes.
Right. You take out a loan just to buy the car. So usually you go to the dealer, you go to Toyota, you buy a Prius. They give you a loan for the Prius and you pay Toyota every month. That's a purchase money security interest, which is an Article 9 transaction subject to a coda, but different story for a different day. But in order for Toyota to maintain their lien on your car, so you cannot sell your car to someone else, one, they hold the title, but if it were not a titled vehicle, they would be using Article 9. So, with things that are not cars, where they can hold the title, with things like computers in an office or, a tractor at a construction company or something else that is personal property, where the only thing that can keep you from selling it to someone else or mortgaging it to someone else to get money, the only thing that keeps you from doing that is that future lenders, future purchasers are supposed to check the Article 9 database. And as Carla explained, it's not searchable. If they spell your name wrong, they can't find it. If you describe the property wrong, it doesn't apply. 3 weeks of class, literally, because of all the things that could go wrong. But with Carla's code, it could go in exactly as you intended. People could search, you could put the token number or something in the record and link it to the property, and we wouldn't have these problems. I mean, the thing that I think about too, the two next things I think about is, certificates of incorporation and like the LLC certificates of formation, that just make the thing come into existence. So we could kind of eliminate, what's it called? De facto and de jure and all that stuff that we talk about. When people fail to actually form it, you'd know immediately that you formed it. And how much quicker could like buying a house be?
Right.
If we could just close by executing a smart contract and they transfer the money, you get the keys, and it does not take days or hours, to get all the paperwork together and all the filing in the county record. So I think this is quite revolutionary and fascinating. And I can just keep thinking of additional applications. But it shows how much more secure things can be. It's not just about trading currency and the fun stuff. We really can make the law better if we can use this technology, right? The other thing I don't think people realize is, I remember doing transactional work or even, getting a judgment in a lawsuit and having to go find people's assets, and the number of times that you have to physically go to a county clerk's office and pull titles and UCC filing statements. A lot of your lawyer fees are junior associates going places and looking in boxes.
It's true. It's true.
Like far more of your time than I think any lawyer would like to admit. All right. So the next thing I want to ask you about, let's see how much time we've got. A few more minutes. How can the average person who is like, I actually do want to invest in crypto, I've read about it on the internet, what's the best way for them to find out what's a good investment? What's a safe investment? What's a safe platform to invest on? Is there, a centralized resource out there? Is there information they should be reading?
Oh, it's a good question. So there's lots of information out there. The question is, what's good information? So the benefit of the ecosystem that it is largely decentralized, and it's very welcoming ecosystem. If you're interested, there's someone who's be willing to help you. The question is whether they know what they're talking about or not. So that's one thing. There are and then blanking on the name of it at the moment, but there are online modules issued by, I can't think of what it is. I'll have to tell you later. But anyway, there is online courses that are free that are quite good and reputable, that you could take. Not knowing the name doesn't help you very much though. And
Well, I think free helps because so many
yeah.
people want to charge you money for this information.
No, there's definitely free resources that are good free resources. Then I want to say it's put out by MIT, like, to be honest, but or it could be Stanford. It's one of the two. But they offer these courses, these online modules for free. And then there is so that's how would you like learn about it broadly. I would definitely recommend that. I would recommend anything from the foundation that operates the protocol. So like you can trust the Ethereum Foundation's research reports, right? I mean, some of it's going to be marketing, but it's coming from the source, the people that are putting out the code often. Somewhat the same thing with the Bitcoin Foundation, but for Bitcoin and for policy issues broadly, they do really good research. But they do have lawyers on staff who talk about the legal issues to look out for. In terms of whether you're looking at a safe platform, I would, if they are a regulated entity, most of the time the regulations require them to display their licenses on their website. So I would start with money transmission. If you are giving dollars to a company like Coinbase or Kraken or Gemini, whoever, and you're transferring money to other people through them, it is highly likely that they're governed as a money transmitter. So go look and see if they have their money transmission license posted somewhere. Usually down there around legal and privacy policy, they'll have part of their legal piece will be a page explaining what their licenses are. You'd also look in your terms of service. It usually says in the terms of service what they are, who they are. If they're a trust company, for example, a lot of the custodians operate as trust companies, like a form of state-issued bank, kind of, particularly out of New York, Wyoming, and Nevada. And then you might look up their regulatory filings, like if they're purportedly regulated by the SEC and they say they're fully compliant, then you go look it up, find out if they actually are, right? There are public lists of those things, but that's certainly the due diligence I do before I use a platform. I don't use a platform that does not display their licenses or otherwise disclose who their regulators are in their materials.
All right, so these are great takeaways. I think the first takeaway is the content is free, right? This basic information is free. And I think generally you can trust a university website, right? So the things that people like Carla and I write, it gets reviewed. We have to have citations. So if it's on MIT's website, Stanford's website, an article you find on SSRN or on Google Scholar, you can probably trust that. Not the guy who's DMing you on Twitter. No. But, something on a university website you can trust. And then before you send someone money, read your terms of service and read that legal section of the website and see if they are licensed, and then double back and check the agency. Those are the ways to do it safely. Because a lot of people are like, oh my God, my NFT was stolen, or, oh my God, I thought I bought crypto and it's gone. And the way that that's happening is you're probably not buying from a reputable source, right? Yeah. So make sure you do just a little bit of research before you go transferring your money and thinking you're going to be a .com billionaire, a new .com billionaire.
And look, some of that stuff is stuff I would recommend for like regular money transfer apps too. Read your terms of service, find out like if the balance that you're holding with them, if they put a security interest on that, right? If they have the ability to settle by just swiping your funds, and whether you have the ability to push a dispute, ask those questions, and they should be in your terms of service, even just for regular currency. That's advice I would use for any app related to your money. But yeah,
agreed. All right, well, thank you so much, Carla, for being on the show. Thank you all for tuning in to Getting Common. If you ever miss an episode, you can catch the rebroadcast anywhere podcasts are played, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on our Voice America website. You can also catch it on our YouTube channel, and you can contact me on social media at Carliss C. Thank you again, Carla, for being on the show.
Thank you
And
so much
thank
for
you
having me.
all for listening.